Once again, it's a HMV Stereomaster. This time it's the stereogram, which doesn't have the built-in radio. I've just pulled this out of storage. It's the 2026. I think they're 1966, 1967. So the 2026. And when you see these things, like on eBay, let's just see if we can zoom into that knob on the end. The mode selector. You notice it's got gram, tape and radio, but the radio is not a built-in radio. So in gram position it's internal turntable. That platter's seen better days. And then if we just move round, you can just see the two sockets there. The top one, which says radio, is the external radio input. It's a 3.5mm jack, mono, and that is expecting to be plugged into an HMV transistor radio with an output for some product like this. So it's a line output, it's not from a speaker. And then lower down, you've got a tape socket, which is bidirectional in stereo. So you can record from this product or play through this amplifier and speakers. As usual with the Stereomasters, there's 4 speakers. The woofers are at the side. These are intended to be put in this corner of the room and project the stereo effect out. So we brought this out from storage for a particular reason. Later on today, we're going to be getting a chassis in for repair for one of these. So rather than the customer come hundreds of miles and deposit his Stereomaster, and then collect it 6 weeks later, he's actually just sending the chassis. He's competent enough to sort it out himself. So these are always solid state. That's another point about the HMV Stereomasters. They're all solid state. HMV did a radiogram range as well as the Stereomaster range. The Stereomaster range was hi-fi. Right, so the first thing we're going to do in part 1 on this is we're going to have a look at if there's anything we can do with this turntable. We're going to have to get a replacement platter mat from somewhere, no idea, and I'm also not very happy that this arm retaining clip is broken on this one. At least we've got the long spindle for our auto as well as the manual spindle. So it's a Garrard 3000. I've always liked the auto cleaning stylus brush. The cartridge in these is 92 AHC from Sonotone. Am I right, Simon? 90 AHC, thank you. We've got Simon here today. The innards now exposed, and on this model, when you take the bottom off, it also exposes the 2 speaker enclosures, which do need to be sealed. It's the way it is. So you've got 2 amplifier modules, power supplies on the chassis here. We'll be taking that out and servicing it in the workshop. But what we now need to do to work on the turntable is I need to disconnect it from power, because we're not going to run the electronics on something like this. So I will cut those off just like that, and we'll connect them through our safe block to mains, and then we can work on it. Let's see where we're going to get a replacement platter from, or some alternative. It's a bit frustrating, that. What we need to do is to take the remains of this platter off, and there should be a circlip. Oh, first of all, there's this bit of trim, and that can be fun to get out. There we go, bit of trim, circlip. It's half out. There we go. Then the platter should just lift off, which it does. And then we have a disgustingly... Where's that been after?
Well, at least that one's not seized up, Richard.
No, we don't have to have the soldering iron on it.
No, that's a good thing. Saves some work.
So, we'll take the circlip off the auto mechanism cam. That's too, that's a bit seized for me to get off. I'll tell you what we'll just do. I'm going for lunch in 20 minutes, so I'll tell you what, we put some WD-40 on that and it might save me the bother of having to heat it up. So, the circlip on there, on the idler. Lift the idler off, and there's a thrust washer underneath. So that's that. And the spindle, we'll just put that there because we'll be using the auto spindle. You always know that there's something wrong when the auto spindle is not in use. We'll just see whether that's moving at all. You know what? It is. I don't need to go for lunch. There we go. And as ever, it's this grease underneath which needs to be removed, and that is absolutely solid. This is the thing which as the tone arm goes into the centre of the record, this is supposed to get pushed and then the auto mechanism trips. But this is so stiff, I can only just push that, so we need to get all the crud off there. That's going to be fun to even get off. No, it's come off. And then there's another circlip underneath. I've got to hope it doesn't go flying across the room. There we go. And get the lower one out. You know what, I'm going to run this in, I'm going to take this in and we'll run this through the ultrasonic cleaner. Right, so then the next day or whatever, we'll come to Mr. Chippy's bench. Oh look, there's the mega tracker on the corner. So, I've had this in the ultrasonic cleaner, I've had this in the ultrasonic cleaner, had to remove this with heat, with a blow lamp. So, I've run through that carefully with a drill. I'm not expanding the hole, just getting rid of grease. And this is still tight going in at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is use a linishing wheel. Because it's got roughed up over the years and it's ended probably been pivoting on its rivet. So it's still tight going in there. I can see an actual ridge. Just see whether I can use that. Still too tight. So it's just about there. How's that got so mangled? think one more and we're done. That's it. Right, we can now carry on. We borrowed that out of the organ workshop. Right, we'll go back to the chapel and do a bit more to it. Right, so somewhere in the gloom, I've put oil down the motor shaft, so that'll go into the bottom. I mean, when did this last work? Now, I don't know whether I mentioned earlier, but that turntable, with all the problem that has, I did have a word with Andy at Vintage Audio at Stockport, and he said, I've got one of those. So I've done a deal with him. So that should be coming in a few days. We could always borrow one of something else, but I think I can probably play a 45 just for a test. I want to clean the stuff off here. I've got isopropyl alcohol on this paper. It would actually help me if I could run this. I'm just going to connect it to power. Switch it to manual. And our motor's going round. Put some isopropyl alcohol on this. We'll let the motor do all the work. Not too bad at all. Good. So I'm just going to clean around the idler. Now another piece of this paper, I'm just going to put some light oil. Put that on the idler's shaft. And also the auto mechanism shaft. I think we need to do a bit more on the auto mechanism shaft. I'm going to use WD-40 to clean some of the crud off there. So making sure the thrust washer is on the shaft, which it is. And the second thrust washer. Circle it back on. Have I got any pliers here? I actually put them away. Why would I do that? See if I can push it on with a screwdriver. That's all. So now when I press the start button, and we should be able to change the speeds 16, 33, 45 and 78. So I'll leave it in 78 for a moment. We'll just turn the power off. Now then, where's that auto spindle? I don't know whether I need to run that through the ultrasonic cleaner. Now this isn't going to lock in without the centre thing. Right, so I'll put the platter on. I've just snapped away all that rubber. It's still all over the place in the middle. Let's see what happens. We're on manual. Yep, that's fine. Right, we'll put the auto cam back on. Just going to apply some grease. And these either go on or they don't go on. I think I did the ball bearings, but we'll just do that again. Put that washer on now. There we go. Let's try putting the platter on again. That's better. Right, see if it'll run. Now this time, it's going to try and work the auto mechanism that hasn't moved in years. So I'm going to take the tone arm to the centre of the record. Now, this is going to be wonky, of course it is. Let's just see if we can get a 10-inch record to drop at 33 RPM. The manufacturer recommends you do all the setup with a 10-inch record. That way, when you set the point at which the stylus goes onto the edge of the record, if it's set up correctly at 10-inch, it should follow that it then is set up properly for 12-inch or 7-inch. So if you set it up for 7-inch, there could be a degree of error. Wow, there you go. Now these don't have a queuing lever. If you hear any music in the background, by the way, it's the background music system. It's a bit wonky, isn't it, with that knackered turntable platter? And you also notice I've still got it in transport mode, so that it's locked down to the motorboard, which is something I should have backed off. So I think we're just about there. Bet it hasn't done that for 40 years. Look how it's going on and on and on, although it's stopped. Right, so I'll show you the amplifier. So now it's out. You've got full-size potentiometers, so you can really get some cleaning into those. So never be tempted to power these up before doing the capacitors, because it's so easy if the capacitors are duff, which are going to be, to blow the transistors, which are hard to get and expensive when you can get them. As you can see, they're the same size as an AC128. Forgotten the, is it T0126? No, it's not. Forgotten. Is it T01, T05? No. So when we actually look at the amplifier modules, this type of electrolytic is notoriously bad. Perhaps the others aren't so bad, but those black ones are. Is it Hunt's or is it Callan's? And then the other thing is you've got another one of those. Let's just zoom in. This is the preamplifier board. So the very first time they used these modules was in their 2020 stereogram, which was not a Stereomaster. This has come a year later. And the very first one they used, I think it was BSR 2000 with an Ronette crystal cartridge. And so it didn't need the preamp. But when they went to the ceramic cartridges, I say this is 90 AHC, needed preamplification. And so you've got this subboard. I can't see the transistors. Am I looking in the wrong place? Yes, they're there at the edge. And some weird number, Texas Instruments. I think I've got them in stock, believe it or not. Only because I've been doing this for 40 years. I have had two go down over the years. So there you are, that's the amplifier module. So we'll get this on the bench and we'll get that serviced. And at least with it having the transformer on the chassis, at least we can run it as a standalone unit. I always cut off these and just use chock blocks to connect back up. Saves an awful lot of messing. They were deliberately not on plugs and sockets, so you haven't got the plugs and sockets tarnishing. So I know why they did it. So there you go. So that's the end of part 1, HMV 2026. So the customer's amplifiers arrived, and we'll do both the amplifiers, and then we'll carry on like that. When I've done my amplifier and when we finish this will actually be sold on eBay because it's surplus. We've got several of these and it is actually surplus to requirements. I think I collected this from Clacton-on-Sea of all places. Thanks for watching.